Final expense live transfers. The idea seems great. Have somebody call, qualify, and transfer you somebody who's interested in getting information about final expense, and you don't pay for calls that are short. Sounds like a dream, right? But if you're not careful, it's a one-way ticket out of this business. In this video, guys, I'm going to share with you a couple stories of our experience and give you some information on what to look for if you are interested in live transfers, because most of the live transfer offers out there are trash. Complete dumpster trash. And I'll explain that here in just a moment, okay? To be clear, most live transfer services aren't worth it. The market is littered, absolutely littered with people from the Philippines, Pakistan, other places where call centers are massive, offering you final expense live transfers, and it's effectively putting most agents out of the business because they can't resist a $20 to $35, depending on the offer, call with a 3-minute buffer, right? It used to be 90 seconds, used to be 60 seconds. Then it went to 90 seconds and 2 minutes, now it's 3 minutes. Anything to get you to take their base, and agents are falling for it, and they're just getting absolutely crushed. When I look at our downline agencies so we have agencies under Digital BGA that aren't on our laser system. They have their own agencies, right? And we act as an IMO for many agencies out there. When I look at their some of their business and their quality of business, those agents that are getting terminated from carriers are taking live transfers. And the agents that have a lot of debts that's rolling up to these agencies, when we profile them, they were taking live transfers. Okay? I'm warning you guys, do not take overseas live transfers or do not take live transfers unless there's these 2 checkboxes that I'm going to give you at the end of this video, where we found finally a live transfer service that is US-based, the caller's here in the US, and they source their own data without using any third parties. And so I'll get into the details at the end of this video, but I want to tell you guys a story here. Our tumultuous history with live transfers, just to paint a picture, because I think it'll hit home and it drives home the point on why it's not a good decision to work overseas live transfers, okay? So a few years ago, we had a live transfer with a 2-minute buffer, leveraging a US-based company who ran an offshore call center, okay? So we wanted to, we got suckered in to do a cheaper live transfer. And, it took me a while to find somebody US-based that could prove it with organization docs and everything, right? And that was important to us because we had them sign our TCPA liability agreement to take responsibility and indemnify us for any TCPA complaints on the calls they send over. That was important to us. And let's just say this, the company we worked with, they definitely had to pay out some TCPA complaints. On the second TCPA complaint, which really scared the agent, but we had their back because they signed this contract and they took care of it. After they paid it off, it was just too much risk for us to work with them. And so we fired them, because that's, if it happened twice, then it's going to happen again. So, we like the transfers. We like the concept of it. And it's, with agents, it takes away that call reluctance. There's also a thing called transfer reluctance as well, to get in a queue and take transfers, but it's a lot easier than making outbound dials. And so we wanted to figure out how to generate our own data, and we did. And you have to generate cheap final expense data, okay? So we figured it out. We hired an offshore call center to call it and transfer leads, okay? So this is our leads now. We know it's TCPA compliant because it'll come with a TCPA compliance certificate with it through, at the time it was Jornaya. Right now we use, I think it's Trusted Form. Anyway, all that to say, we did that for a while and it was working well. But part of generating these calls is also sourcing compliant data to call, because the leads we generated couldn't meet the demand of the transfers that we needed to deliver. So all that to say, we had to source some data outside of the data that we were generating. Had to have a compliance certificate, all that stuff. Right? So I'm talking to this data broker who somehow got my contact information, based here in the US even, okay? He checked my 2 boxes for a test, right? He was US based and he signed our TCPA liability contract. Okay, so I ran a test with his data that he sends me a file. We ran it against our internal data and we found 100% match to the data we generated the previous month that we generated, that we haven't released to anybody. We don't resell our data. That's just for our transfer. That's what our call centers are calling on. It was 100% match, even the timestamp, the date and the time. Okay, 100% match. They tried to resell me the leads that I generated. Wrap your mind around that, okay? So someone at the offshore call center was reselling our data that we've been generating. So then we did a study on just the live transfer leads, like that lead set, and found our 13-month persistency was in the 55 range, trending for the 55 range and trending down, like it was tanking. So we shut down the program immediately. These offshore call centers, right? They had, at the time, they were around, I think, like 75 callers, then plus managers and the operator over there calling on our data to generate transfers for us. Okay. The operators denied doing any of that, right? But somebody in their system, maybe they did do it. Maybe they did resell our data, but somebody had access to our data. There's, probably 80 to 90 plus people there in that call center that had access to our data that maybe could have downloaded it and started selling it to other call centers. Guys, avoid overseas live transfer services, no matter how tempting it is. Okay. Those offers for $20 to $35 live transfers, it's not feasible unless they are just buying resold data for very, very cheap. And it's going to be data that has been called on before and transferred before. Okay. So there is no way a final expense live transfer service can generate a TCPA compliant lead for $20 to $35, let alone that long a buffer for, I mean, now they're getting up to 3 minutes now. Okay. But the big thing here, guys, is the sales that you do make on live transfers are going to be called again by other live transfer companies. People are going to come behind you to try and replace you because they're all playing in the same pool of data. Okay. Your clients will continue to be called on and introduced to other agents. That's why our persistency was tanking on that data set. And we were even generating our own data. It was just getting resold. I would not trust any overseas call center to transfer you calls. I wouldn't give them your data and I wouldn't take their calls. Okay. It's not the path to a healthy life insurance telesales business. So here's what we found to work though for live transfers. And so we kind of got lucky here. We reluctantly took another shot at live transfers because it checked 2 boxes for us. And I've had these 2 boxes for a couple years now. I'm like, I'm not getting into live transfers because I just shared with you our experience, a ridiculous experience, until they meet these 2 criteria. Number 1, the call center is US based. When I say US based, they're not just have their LLC here and then they use an offshore call center. They have their callers in the US. Okay. And number 2, they generate their own data and they don't source anything from third parties. That's really hard to come across. Okay. And we only came across one recently and we have them now digital VGA. Okay. So we're using a call center. They have US callers down in Florida who generate their own data. They don't source anything. They go to their landing pages and get connected to their US based caller. Somebody fills out a form and then it immediately goes in their system and called by one of their telemarketers in Florida. Now, they've been a Medicare-based live transfer firm for a while doing that same thing. They were referred to us by a Medicare agency owner that I've known for a few years, that I was speaking to on a carrier trip earlier this year, who says they can't get enough of these Medicare transfers and they're looking for a partner to start their final expense division who can take some volume. So I reluctantly took that call and was impressed, guys. Their management team was on that Zoom call. Their tech team was on that Zoom call. Their marketing team was on there, and they were all explained everything, the ins and outs on everything that they're doing. Okay, we initially, a few more back and forth. We landed on the call for $45. with a 90-second buffer. And we knew that it had to have an 18% close rate or else it's not going to work. And if you've worked live transfers in the past, and please comment and back me up here if you've seen the same, you're going to be like average is 10 to 12% on those $25 to $35 live transfers, okay? The overseas live transfers. Even with the buffer, 10 to 12% is average. Some are a little higher, some are lower, but that's average. But then you have to factor in the constant churning of that data and getting replaced in your persistency and quality business, okay? So we knew we had to be about 18%. And they also screen out for active checking account. So Direct Express is a knockout. They specifically asked for that. And they also screen for terminal illness to knock out some GI cases. They requested daily calls to calibrate at the beginning on all feedback, which was a huge green flag. We talk about red flag all the time. That is a green flag that they want to communicate on our sales the previous day of the transfers and the feedback that they received. So this was an amazing sign to us. Our initial closing rate was 14%. We were a little like, okay, maybe this isn't, maybe we got too excited about this. But we worked with them daily. They listened to our feedback. They retrained their call centers. They worked with some of the callers that were doing the bad things, right? It was isolated. And then we got to 18%, which is where we needed to be at a minimum. So now agents are catching on. We're seeing some agents just rave about these transfers. And last week we hit 20%, okay, on a $45 live transfer with a 90-second buffer. Keep in mind, that's average. Some agents are lower, some agents are higher. The agents that are taking a lot of transfers are higher because they're getting in that flow, okay? Now, many agents out there would look at a $45 live transfer and think, I can get this for 20 to 35 bucks with a 3-minute buffer. And it doesn't sound good to them, okay? I can tell you that without a doubt, that's an offshore call center and you're going to run into these issues. Like I said at the beginning of this video, we have agents with terrible quality of business that are getting removed from carriers, right? Their contracts are getting terminated and they're just gathering lots of debt because of chargebacks, because of the transfers that they received. They're getting transferred again to other agents over and over and over again. All right. So don't take that bait, guys. Don't take that $20 to $35 3-minute buffer live transfer bait. I beg you, it's a one-way ticket out of this business. I've seen it too many times, okay? If you do want to take live transfers, make sure that number one, the call center is in the US. The callers are in the US. When you get that warm transfer, it's a nice, friendly voice with no accents. You can tell right away, right? And that they generate their own data and that they don't sell it anywhere else. Because that's a way that call centers do monetize on the back end. They call through their data and then they sell it for pennies on the dollar to somebody else who will then call on it again. They don't care. It's not their clients. They worked it for the transfers. They did what they had to do. Now they're going to sell the data somewhere else so they can monetize monetize even more for bigger profits. That's just how call centers work. You have to make sure that those call centers aren't doing that and that you have this relationship where you're calibrating not every day. We did it every day. Now it's twice a week that we calibrate with them. So make sure, again, US-based, and that they generate their own data, okay? That's the only way to safely and profitably work live transfers. Only way to do it, okay? So Digital BGA has these final expense live transfers available in our Insurance Calls Direct platform, where you can purchase transfers in there in the states that you're licensed in and toggle yourself on. Just click the button on, and then you're placed in the queue to receive the next live transfer that comes in those states, okay? And on that platform, you also get access to our TV call-in leads and any other call-in leads that we have available at the time. We're constantly doing research and development to generate different types of calls and different types of leads, all right? So a lot of agents think $45 live transfer, Digital BJ is out of their mind. Guys, it's working, okay? You also have to think about your return on time. So $45, 20% on average close. Agents that are working them a lot, like a lot of leads, are higher because they're kind of in that groove, right? That acquisition cost. But you think about your return on time. Would you rather take more transfers and a lower closing rate, or less transfers and get around the same acquisition cost and whatnot? And you should really think about live transfers. If, let's just say you're working Facebook leads and your cost per conversation. Cost per 90-second conversation is more than $45. You should probably think about working live transfers, right? If you're not putting in the activity with Facebook leads, if you are having trouble with your caller ID reputation, you're just not getting a hold of people, take a look at your cost per conversation, okay? Track those numbers and determine maybe live transfers are better for you if you don't have what it takes to make Facebook leads work, okay? Anyway, if you guys have any questions about live transfers, post them up here. If you've had any experience with live transfers before, good, bad, ugly, post them up here. Let's hear it. And I hope this helps some of you, and have a great day.